at least stop for a moment and do something, or jet at the worst, but that should be fine.
That's absolutely all right. So, shit, man, thanks for doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the invite. Glad you're interested.
Yeah, there's going to be a guy that was going to do it, and he's like, I can't do it today. I got to pick up supplies. And I was like, it's kind of cryptic. And he was like, he's in Southern California, and he was like, oh no, like coronavirus is like spreading here. And I was like, what? So I Googled it, and it's like U.S. it's like evacuating like health clientele from Southern. I was like, wait, what? So I was just like, I'm on the East Coast, and that's not my problem. So I was like, I'm just gonna unplug and not look at that. Yeah, exactly. I had too much shit going on. I was like, I'll just blot that out. So why don't you just introduce yourself and kind of say what you do? If you've watched any of the other episodes, not expecting that you have. I find people that are interesting that I want to bring on, and I try not to look. Yep. I try to like get an idea of what they do, but then not look any deeper than that, because I figure anyone who's listening to this, they didn't do research and they didn't prep questions. So I want it to be sort of vicarious, like people figure out through me. So go for it.
I watched one of them. And I think it's a great approach, just because it's like you were saying, if you run into someone on the street, or you're at a restaurant, wherever, and you spark up a conversation with someone, you don't know anything about them. And that's the fun part of a conversation, is learning it on the fly about somebody. But my name's Bradley Wentzel, and I am a still and motion photographer, predominantly currently with a lot of aviation based stuff. But background has been in a lot of commercial portraits, stuff like that. So a lot of my career started out with mostly people editorials, which gradually kind of got into a little bit more commercial work. So was able to photograph quite a few athletes, Olympians, things like that. Slowly started getting into like a little bit of celebrities, not anyone terribly too big or well known, but probably to some people.
Yeah.
And then just kept moving forward and networking and meeting new people and new opportunities that I found interesting. And and then in the short span, then I find myself in aviation, which is totally different.
Yeah.
But it's awesome. So
I saw the picture I saw that made me want to ask you was what is it? I can never remember. Is it F-86? Is that what it is?
Yeah. So that was F-86. And I was actually from last year. I just happened to be thumbing through my archives and came across that. I was like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I forgot about that and thought I'd post it. And it was, we were just out, we had filmed a few things that day, a Mustang, and what did we do that day? I think we did, can't remember if that was, anyway, at least a Mustang and that F-86, which was really cool.
Yeah.
So that's a good time. And it's I think it gave a good perspective on, I'm always trying to describe what it's like to be filming when a plane is coming that close or another aircraft's coming that close to you. And it's neat because you just see the little tiny, bobbles, and you can just tell somebody is at the controls, you see a plane flying by and it just seems like this just dead straight line and it's very methodical. But when it's that close, you see that it's bumping through the air. You can tell that they're correcting, all this stuff. And it's just kind of, and when you're going at the same pace, it just seems like it's just like a kite just flying
right there. Oh yeah, I guess
still,
Damn.
Obviously you can see the ground moving, but the further away you get away from it, it just, it just seems like this little hovering craft, and it's kind of fun.
That's a little out there. I'd never thought about that. Yeah, you see a plane in the sky, and you're right. It's just a beeline, just kind of abstract.
You go to an air show and you just see something whipping past you, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. That thing's just
there's
a
fight.
Locked to
there's a
like
fighter
it's locked
jet.
to a track,
Yeah.
But when they get that close, you you see like, all right, there's wind, there's air going
like,
under these
oh,
things.
There's a dude behind there that like, whoa, all right, man. That's a little, damn. And
so, I hope that video kind of conveyed that to people, that, it just gave a different perspective. You don't typically see, stuff like that. Or at least if you do see stuff, it tends to be, even if it's kind of air to air like that, you tend to see it being a little more polished, that you see commercial airline film or something like that, and it's just, the airliner's dead steady and, or whatever it is. And you're just kind of accustomed to that footage because everyone wants it to be polished and clean. Yeah. And that was just kind of, it was a hot day. So that causes a lot more air movement and pockets and things like that.
I didn't know that.
And then I was in a B-25, which is twin engine. So that creates a lot of wind for the plane behind you. So that's also why it's bumping around and all that stuff. So it was fun.
Yeah. I was going to say, I guess if there's ever like a photo shoot for commercial airliners, like it's probably just that. This is PR. This is, you don't want you're advertising your mammoth metal tube that's going to whisk you and your loved ones across the ocean. You probably don't want to show it bobbing up and down. You probably want to be nope. It's like some Soviet propaganda, like strong. It never wavers, like something like that. Yeah, I didn't think about that. What was it like? So what were you filming out of? Just.
So we're filming out of that time a B-25.
Yeah, but where are you on it?
Yeah, and then in that spot is the rear tail gunner position. So we're obviously there's fake guns on old warbirds. You can't have real guns on there anymore. But so we can either pop the window out of that, and then I can film directly out of that, unobstructed, no plexiglass or anything in the way. So just filming out straight out of the back, which is always kind of a really unique position. Typically, most people aren't getting a view of a plane coming right at them.
Yeah.
Now, since then, we've taken off the entire rear gunner area of the rear end of that. So,
oh Jesus.
Now it's just now I can just sit there and just be completely unobstructed. So I can look down, I can look up, side, everything. So you can get a lot of positions just being in one spot.
Yeah.
But you can also, in that plane, you can also move forward a little bit more, and there's a port out of the side that you can open up so you can shoot directly from the side. To get a profile shot of a plane, or down below at an angle, just to get something a little different. But yeah, out of the rear end is definitely fun, especially when it's just completely open and wide open. I'm strapped in, obviously.
Yeah,
it's fun to just it's like you're standing on a cliff that's moving at a few hundred miles an hour, and
nope.
Another plane coming right at you.
Nope. I'll take the airliner that's gonna never just smooth ride. Yeah, dude.
You can have soft drinks on it and not and not see it bump or move.
Now have you ever thought about trying to like hitch a ride with like the Blue Angel? I mean, I say it like you can just put your thumb up, hey, pick me. No, but but I know like you can go for, I don't know if it's just the barrier to entry is just money, but like you can go for a ride with like fighter jets. Would that provide you with any better footage, or is that just more of like it wouldn't really affect what you're doing? I guess for still photography it wouldn't, but for videography it would.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible. I know they offer, I don't want to say rides, to just kind of anyone or the general public, but they do open it to civilians. But it usually has to be for some sort of, it's usually for some sort of commercial purpose, or, to fulfill someone's kind of dream in kind of a different position. But, I mean, it's definitely possible. That's one thing I'm kind of working on, is to move into some modern military aircraft
Mm-hmm.
or more commercial stuff. I've got a little bit, but that's one thing I'm trying to work on is just networking in that kind of region to kind of get some more of that stuff, because the majority of the stuff that I shoot is for more warbird based, so a lot of just older military aircraft, which are a blast and they're really unique. A lot of history to them, but there's still part of me that loves a good modern jet.
The sleek, the modern, the F-22, the F-35. Now, who do you do these for, or the pictures? Like, what's your website?
My website's my first and last name, BradleyWentzel.com.
All right.
The majority of the stuff that I do is for Lewis Air Legends, which is where I am the creative director. So that's the meat and potatoes of the work that I do. So I'm their in-house creative director, which lends me to being able to photograph and film as well, which is kind of rare as a creative director. So that's predominantly what I'm doing. But there's bits and pieces that I do outside of work, and take on stuff that's not aviation based too, just for creativity purposes and whatnot. So
I was gonna say, looking at, because I looked at your website that you sent to me, and it's always kind of a trip seeing like your photos of old aircraft, because you think, at least for me, you think old aircraft, but then it's sort of everything is with that time. You're seeing it, but you're seeing it from a 1940s grainy shot, and Europe's on fire beneath it or something. You see an F-22 and an F-35. It's like, you expect it to always be like 4K, and because it's like those exist now. But seeing yours, it's kind of a weird. It's like when you see colorizations of old videos or pictures. It sort of removes the barrier, the huge, temporal barrier of that was forever ago. When it's added color, it's so stupid, but you add color and all of a sudden you're like, oh, they're just like us. And it's like, well, no shit, they always were. But seeing your photos, super high resolution of just like bombers and old fighters, it's weird. Like, I don't know. And I mean that in the best way.
I know what you're saying. That's what a lot of like filming and photography does is, you get used to seeing, movies just in general. They seem surreal. They seem, I don't want to say fake. They are, but not in the negative sense. But it's removed a little bit from reality, so it doesn't seem like if you see a video with, your iPhone that you take or something like that, it resonates with people a lot better, given what it was taken for. People can relate to it a lot easier because they're like, oh, well, that's what it looks like when I'm used to that format or I'm used to that look. But then you see old photos from the 40s and stuff that are, they're grainy, they're a little blurry, or they're, and they're black and white. That's not how we see the world. So each of those things kind of removes the reality from it. But so then when you see old, warbirds and vintage aircraft and stuff clearly, and things like that now it's different. It's kind of a little, it's
a head trip,
time warp, and head trip, bringing something from the past into something modern.
What's weird is I didn't think about is that, like, there are definitely still World War II veterans alive, which means that this trippy thing I'm looking at, to them, it's like, that's what I saw. Like, that's not the images they look at, but it's like, that's what I saw. That's weird. So there's not many World War II vets alive. Not it's dwindling. I don't know about you, but I'm still in that, like, it's 2000. So I'm like, 1945 was 55 years ago. I'm like, 1980, dude, 1980 was 40 years ago. Like, it's if there's anything you could record, any aircraft, is there like a specific kind that you think would be more fun than others, or is it all about where you're doing it? Is it like an F-22, like, tearing through a canyon, or like a B-2 Spirit, like 60,000 feet above the Arctic with enough payload to, wipe out North America? To put it in a completely sane way.
I don't think I have any particular aircraft that is like my bucket list aircraft,
Sure.
I mean, like I said, there's definitely some out there, F-22s, F-35s are awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'll get some flack for, some people in the aviation community that
F-35, what?
Yeah, well, and just people too that, hate when people are like all gung-ho about, F-22s and F-35s, there's still some awesome stuff. Actually, I would love to photograph one of the A-10 Warthogs. Those things are pretty cool. But yeah, I think I'm big on location. I think that's one thing that I would love to focus on, which is no easy task because it's all about, customers and where they're located and what they're looking to do and budgets and what they're looking to push. But locations really set a tone. I'm based in Texas, and the landscape here is not the greatest. For a lot of aerial type of work, it's pretty much just flat and bushes and stuff. So it doesn't always make for the greatest of backdrops, but we're hoping to do a lot of stuff this year that'll take us to quite a few places that should have some really good backdrops, like Colorado and stuff. So be good to get some Rocky Mountains back there. But I think I'm more just focused on, I think you can take a average aircraft, that you see every day flying through the air, but put it in with a nice setting or a nice backdrop, and it can just really make it pop. A guy that I follow on Instagram posted some of just a general, I think it was like a 182 Cessna or something like that. You're just average plane. But it was on the coast of San Diego, and it was just like these beautiful cliffs during sunset with the ocean, and it's like, it just really helps frame a plane. So
Now, when you are there certain I've taught myself graphic design to an extent. So I see certain things and instantly I'm like, oh, I got an idea for a piece I'm gonna do. That's gotta be like Elon Musk smoking pot with Joe Rogan. When I watched that, I remember watching that podcast, and it instantly made me think of the Falcon Heavy rocket taking off. And so I made a piece where it's him, but the blunt is the Falcon Heavy rocket, and he's blowing out the fire from the. But there's certain things I see where I don't even think about it. I see it, and I'm like, there it is. That's the thing I'm doing. Is there anything like that with photography or videography? I don't even know if I'm using the right terminology. But you just see something, you're like, that, location or object or subject, whatever.
Yeah, no, I think that comes with time. Early on in photography when I started, it was a struggle to see something and be like, that's cool, and then you'd photograph it and be like, wow, that's not cool. It doesn't. I was like, how come I can't?
It's like when you see the pictures of the moon,
person, and in reality, and
it's just
your mind takes you to a certain place, and you're able to have feelings and see something and experience that. In reality. And that's the hard part with photography, is being in that moment and trying to capture not just the photo, but the feeling of it and what it's like to be, depending on the subject matter, whether it's photojournalism or you're doing something commercial. But, is trying to do that. So I think it's come with time, being able to see something on the go and being able to snap a photo of it and being able to, frame it to no lighting, especially, and be like, okay, well, the lighting's terrible right now. It's probably not going to look great. Maybe if I'm able to come back to it a little later or something like that, and just be able to compose an image, on the fly and know that, oh, I'm experiencing this right now. Let me try to capture this. In a way that if I post it and somebody sees it, they can get an idea. They can almost get the feeling of what it was like to be that and what I was thinking. So, but then there's other times where it's really methodical and it's really thought out about, okay, this is what I want to do. so for like a lot of these, aircraft that I'm photographing, we'll sit before we even go up, because especially when there's multiple planes flying, everyone needs to know what the plan is, because although you're flying in formation, but hey, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And it's usually not on the go, but everyone's in radio contact.
Yeah.
But typically we go up and we say, okay, these are the shots that we want. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up, or, you're going to come down here. We're going to go left. We're going to do that, so on and so forth. So it's really thought out. So especially in that has to be, because, there's multiple people that are on the clock. There's lots of fuel, which is not cheap. So it's trying to be as efficient as possible. It goes both ways.
I was going to say, you don't want some XB-70 Valkyrie type shit going on. That was a photo shoot that you could say didn't go too well. But for anyone that doesn't know, there was an experimental bomber in the 60s, and they did a photo shoot, and one of the chase planes got sucked into I don't know what the correct terminology, I guess, I don't know, jet stream?
Vortex.
The plane was huge, and it got sucked in, and it hit it, and everything went down. Multiple people died, and it basically led to the cancellation of the project. I don't know why I tried to make a joke out of that. It was not good, but
humor is good. I know what you mean. You definitely, you got to be careful. You got to be methodical. It's not like, going to shoot a landscape where you can just, take your time, do whatever, there's a lot of prep that goes into it, for doing stuff like that. So, you definitely got to remember that you're in a chunk of metal full of explosive fuel, several miles in the air, hurtling over the ground. But I mean, not to elaborate too far onto that, but so you can be on the go, see something, snap a photo, and apply all of the stuff that you've learned and experienced, to be able to know that, okay, I see that, that's cool, let me snap it, and I can get it, and it'll turn out, at least in my opinion, good. All the way to really planning stuff out. But then there's always the fun part of the accidental photographs. The ones that you take that, either, in the moment you didn't see you didn't have the vision for it, but still you got the photo, and then later on you come back to it and you're like, oh, that looks perfect. That looks a different way. And it's also fun to go back to photos from, years ago, and that you haven't looked at in a long time. And then all of a sudden you look at it with many more years of experience under your belt, many more experiences, and then just completely look at a photo that you took years ago that you thought was at the time, but then you look and you're like, oh, wait a second, this is totally different. I'm seeing this totally different. And, you can process it, and all of a sudden you've got something that's new, but it's 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and that's always fun.
I've had graphic design pieces where, and I hate to admit it, but like some of the best ones I've made are ones where like I wasn't trying to do something, I like blended the wrong image, or I like superimposed it, and like one time I had this like I was doing like Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, and I just like erased all of the ink, and I just like synthetically made like this parchment, and I accidentally blended it over and made it as like different, so everything was sort of inverted. And I remember like I hit, and this happens all the time, but like I hit the button, and I was like, what is that? Like you see it, and you're like, I couldn't have thought of that. Like my thoughts are way too simplistic. You put it up, and everyone's like, oh, that's perfect. How'd you think of it? And like, of course, I'm not gonna, shit on myself. So I'm like, well, I was looking at it from this angle, like this angle. But that's my ego saying like I can't admit that like I pressed a button and this happened.
No, same here. I mean, there's I equate it to sometimes it's angles and cropping images a certain way. I mean, I just did one the other day that did this photo shoot of this Grumman Bearcat, and shot some horizontal, shot some vertical, and just felt like that was okay. That's how these were shot. And sometimes you just get kind of locked into a routine of like, okay, this is how this is shot. This is how this is shot. And, but then all of a sudden went back to him a couple weeks later and, saw this shot and I was like, oh, you know what, that might look kind of good vertical, even though I shot it horizontal. And thankfully with, quality of cameras and megapixels, you have the liberty to be able to exclude a lot of pixels and still have a high resolution image. But I did it vertical and cropped it in a certain way. And all of a sudden it just took on this whole different look to it. And, so sometimes it's experimental. But that's kind of one thing why I love social media, especially as a photographer, and Instagram specifically, because it's just so photo heavy. That it's fun. Like, sometimes I'll put stuff out there that I'm like, I'll be looking at something. I was like, oh, I think this looks really cool. Then I'll throw it out there, but it's kind of an experiment all the time to be like, all right, I can tell something's doing well if someone likes it based on, the amount of people likes, especially comments, but then other times like, oh, this looks really cool. I think this looks neat. And I'll throw it out there and it's,
dude, I've done some of my Photoshops. I'll put like 3 days into it and I'll be like, this is it. This thing's like, hot off the presses. Like, whoo, can't wait to upload it. No one really cares. And then sometimes you put up one that you're like, I don't really like that one. I put it up, and everyone's like, your best work yet, and you're like, God damn it!
It's how it happens.
That's what I'm learning. It's
fun, but I've tried to get better at, as I'm processing some images, I'll get to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm done. But now I'm going to walk away from this for a bit before I post. So, especially right after a photo shoot, especially filming or photographing air to air, we'll land and you're just, at least me, like I'm always on the high. Like it's a blast to your adrenaline's pumping.
I'm sure.
Hanging out, or whether, hanging out helicopters or planes or something like that. I mean, it's just a rush.
Yeah.
In that experience, not even just being able to photograph it, but dangling your feet out or whatever the case may be, whatever you're doing, it's an experience. And then you take that adrenaline and that feeling right fresh from that, you go edit your photos and you're like, oh, you just want to upload everything.
Yeah.
Forgetting that nobody's heartbeat is up.
Yeah.
Like I know that. So, okay.
Just
nobody's dumped with adrenaline. Yeah, walk away, sleep on it, do it at least later in the week and come back to it when, I've got a resting heart rate and then look at the photos and be like, okay, this one was just pumped up from adrenaline.
Yeah. And it's like what you said earlier. You got to get which ones capture the feeling for people that weren't there. Because, I mean, I know I've done it a million times. Like, I'll look on my external hard drives from, like, college, and, it's like pictures of me and my friends, and every once in a while there'll be, like, a really shitty picture of the moon, and I'll be like, why do I have... Because I've never been a photographer, but I'll be like, you know what? I'm sure that I was looking at it, and it was just one of those moons where you're like, you can reach out and touch it, and you're like, oh my God, I got to get a picture of this. You take a picture of it, and you're like, I mean, it, kind of looks like someone dropped a little bit of like a white paint on a security camera. It's just fuzzy. Yeah. You're like, oh. But when you're right in that, it's so. Yeah, I'm sure that you got to remove yourself from it because, like you said, you're coming out of that, and you're high as a kite. You were just literally high as a kite, but now you're figuratively high as a kite, and you're like, not everyone was there. I do that with podcasts. I mean, granted, I've only been doing this for 7 weeks now. But the conversations I have, because like the first 5 conversations, I just had to, like, I wanted to just get episodes up. So I just had friends come on. I was just like, hey, I need something to just, a point of nucleation to get around. Sure. And once I started actually getting interested in cats, like yourself, when I'm finished, I'm like, I'll walk downstairs and I'll be like, that was the coolest one ever. And I'll be like, I was so amped up. They'll be like, no one else was there. They don't know about it. And it's. No, I know what you're saying. If there is an equivalent, I know what you're saying. It's you got to slow down. You got to. Now, is there with how much photo editing do you do, or do photographers do in general, or is that like too much of a blanket statement? Is it just because I don't create anything? I take stuff that exists. Great photographers like yourself, that I love that because I'm high resolution images, like I can manipulate, but I couldn't, I can't take a selfie, so. Is that?
It depends. At least for myself, I like to try to create images that are. I try to complete an image that's as in camera as possible. So even especially with lighting, if it's not aviation or if it is plane or something like that, I'm using strobes and lighting and things like that. I try to, whatever I'm photographing, I try to get it as close to 100% as possible. So typically, I'll photograph something and I'll bring it into my programs, and it's usually at minimum just the basics of lens correction, color correction, exposure, things like that, just to get it to a point that is as kind of realistic as possible. But then it also all depends on what it was for. If it's for a commercial client and they want a certain look, then it may need more or it may need less. But then there's other times where it's just personal stuff or the creative freedom here at work to be able to, just run with a certain photo shoot and be able to do something totally different. So I have some composites of some aircraft that, hopefully some people can't tell. That's the point, but I never try to hide it. It's a composite, but it's for a purpose. Like there's one aircraft, it's a P-38 Lightning, and it's a Glacier Girl specifically. And we photographed that here in Texas, but I did a composite of it over kind of some snow-capped mountains and stuff like that, because it's the short story behind Glacier Girl was it was a plane back in World War II that left with a bunch of other planes to fly over Greenland to make its way kind of through the back door to Europe. And on the way there, they ran into some trouble. They all had to emergency land on Greenland, and where they basically got stranded. And 50 years later, a number of expeditions went out to try to recover those, only to find out on the 13th expedition that they found one, and it was 268 feet now below ice.
Holy shit.
Over a long period of time, 10 years to get down there and take it apart, lift it out, and then transport it back to the United States, where it was then another 10 years of restoration. So with that story, that's why I put kind of the snow-capped mountains in the back to kind of put it with a story, that, hey, this isn't just a P-38, it's got a story behind it. And granted, we don't have any snow-capped mountains here in Texas, so that took obviously a little bit more, not a ton, but a little bit more work than just a basic photo. So and then there's other times where I'll go a little bit further and just do something that takes a lot of processing, a lot of extra work, and things like that. But the majority of at least the aviation stuff I'm doing, I usually like to try to just do it in camera. That's where it is. That's the location. That's the lighting. As well as for my other work that's not aviation, I always try to just keep it in camera as best as possible.
Yeah. Now, so every once in a while I'll see an image on Reddit, and it's like, to use the moon again, but these are actually great pictures, not like mine. But it'll be like, hey, I made this image, it's 81 megapixels, and like I get that, okay, like awesome, huge file, but it's when it says it's like a composite of like 100,000 photos, what does that mean? Like, what is that? Like, that to me, that's like black magic. It's like, what do you mean it's 100,000?
Basically it's just well, it can mean a number of things, but in that scenario, when it's a composite of X amount of photos, when you say that, I immediately think of one of the, I think it's the largest tree in North America or something like that. I think in Sequoia National Park, and they were able to, for the first time, photograph the entire tree, but it was, I forget the number, but maybe 100 photos or something, because it's so big. And it's not like you just have unobstructed view of this to be able to move back far enough to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So what they did was they basically started at the top or bottom, and they took high resolution photos all the way up. And then they merged those photos together and blotted out so it looks like one kind of vertical panoramic, basically. So you see that. That's one type of composite. Another type of composite is kind of the stuff that I do with some of my images, is taking two completely different photographs, like Glacier Girl and that P-38. I photographed the plane flying, but then have a different photo of snow-capped mountains and stuff like that. And really, that one's really basic, but you still have to look at the lighting on the plane, the natural light that was actually hitting the plane, and then trying to get the best photo that aligns with where the sun was that day, so that it all looks normal, so that it feels normal. And then there's other types of composites where, you see a person that looks like they're miniaturized sitting next to something that's, small on their desktop, and that's just taking two totally different photos and making a composite out of it. So that's
some surreal stuff. Do you do any drone photography or videography? Or is that like a whole different field? Or
here and there, I have one. I just look at drones as just being another tool. I know there's people that just dedicated, that's what they do. And you can definitely get some awesome stuff. But it just kind of depends on the job. If it's somewhere where we just physically can't get and we need a photo of something, we'll definitely utilize it. It's definitely a great tool to use. Obviously there's lots of restrictions that come with that, and areas where you can and cannot fly and all that. But, we, where I work, we have a number of aircraft that we shoot from, some being fixed wing, some being helicopters, so we can pretty much get anywhere we need to. There's definitely times where it's much more cost effective to just run a drone instead of a helicopter. So we'll do that, but it's pretty minimal on my end. But I definitely, depending on jobs, where it's like, okay, we're definitely going to need this, we'll do it. But there's also the continuity factor of filming with a certain type of camera and then filming with a drone, depending on the drone you have. If it's like a DJI, GoPro, something like that, you're getting a different quality, and that then takes a lot of effort to try to match those to try to look as similar as possible. That's one of my pet peeves, is you're watching a video or film or something like that, and you're like, the quality is just mismatched all over the place. You can tell when it's a certain type of camera in a cockpit, it just looks really homemade, but then it's matched with, the cinematic camera. It just it's like a hitting a pothole when you're driving, so
it's like, it's like an 8K stabilized camera, and then it jumps to like a flip phone, like not quite, but like, So if obviously, like, you have to do it for work and you thoroughly enjoy your work, like if money wasn't an issue, like what would, if like you didn't have to do it for anyone, let's say you just, Bill Gates is like, I love your work, here's $1 billion, like, peace, just whatever. What would you photograph, or how would it be aviation? Would it be pickles? I don't know. Would it be all editing? Would it be, I want ballerinas on the moon? Or would it be
it's a good question. Because I've definitely asked myself that, over time. Because that's kind of what at least someone like myself, and I'm sure plenty of other photographers, are like, how can I photograph what I want to photograph, and obviously get paid, make a living out of it. There's, I don't know, there's a number of things. Honestly, what I'm doing right now is definitely at the top of that.
That's cool. That's cool.
So love what I do, and really thankful and at what I'm doing. And I know that there's a lot of people that would like to be doing what I'm doing, but it's a very small niche community and world of photographers that get to do that. So it's awesome to be able to do that. I don't take it for granted.
What?
I think that, and then we're just, I always bring my camera with me kind of everywhere I go anyway, especially when I'm traveling or something. So that's always fun, just more of on a personal side of stuff. So, shooting aircrafts, being up in other planes, shooting them is...
what is that? So this is less of like a photography question, I guess, almost more of like a spiritual question. Like, so I graduated the University of Georgia in 2013, and I dedicated my life to getting into medical school, and I did it, and I got into Miami. And
awesome.
I almost say it every podcast. Clearly, I still have like some complex with it. Like, but I got 15,000 students applied, 100 got in, and I was one, and that's like the proudest thing I've ever done. But I was really, really not happy, and through a whole series of life events that could take up 100 podcasts. I decided not to do it. I decided not to go. I got accepted and decided not to go. And I've taught myself graphic design, but I've always, if you can't tell, I always love talking to people. Maybe I just like hearing myself talk. Who knows? Maybe this is all just an ego inflation. But the primary thing, the primary thing is I want, it's not that, it's like I don't want, $1 billion. Any billionaires listening, I'll take the $1 billion. But it's not that. I just, to me, there's like this, it almost seems like this alchemical, like, holy grail of being able to do what you want. And are you still there? Okay, you froze up for a second. To be able to,
you froze.
Okay, but to be able to do what you want and make money doing it, and obviously nothing is going to be like perfect every day. Even if you're Michael Jordan, there's so many days where you just don't want to do it. But I mean, someone like you, like I always ask people, like that enjoy their work, and it always comes out as like, yeah, I enjoy it, or like, hey, I don't hate it, and I'm like, okay, well that's better than still a lot of jobs out there. But I mean, I saw one of your comments on Reddit where you're like, someone was like, what an awesome job. And it wasn't just like, oh yeah, sure, I've been doing it forever. It was like, it is, and I don't take it for granted. And you just said it again where you're like, I'm so grateful for it. Like, what is that? What was it like before you did that versus, am I putting this thing on a pedestal and I'll get it, and it's like, the luster wears off? Or is it something where you're still like, dude, I do what I love, and I get paid for it.
Because I've been on the flip side of it. It's not like, getting to this point has not been easy.
You don't walk into it.
I was in photography when I was younger. I still remember being in 6th, 7th grade and just running around with my parents' film camera and just taking pictures. I don't know what it was. There was just something about it, and that I really enjoyed. And, always took photography throughout high school. Thankfully my senior year of high school, we got a grant and they had a cinematography class, which I was like, this is amazing. This is what I want to do. And at the time was like, I want to go to Brooks Institute. Brooks Institute is in Santa Barbara. Unfortunately, after 71 years, I think, finally got dissolved and is not there. But it was just, it was like one of the best schools out there for photography and cinematography. And at the time when I was in high school, I was like, that's where I want to go. I was like, this is just so fun. And, especially being one who just kicked and screamed all the way through school, it just was not for me.
Yeah.
So something that I really like to do got me excited about it. So I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is where I'm going to go for college and blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And then come graduation, my dad having his own construction company is like, I'm going to pay you $20 an hour if you come work construction. I was like, sold.
Yeah. Yeah. Done.
And, being 18 and graduating high school, making $20 an hour, basically under the table.
Millionaire. You're a millionaire.
And having no responsibility, no bills, no nothing, it was great. So yeah, did construction for years, went to community college, didn't end up going to Brooks.
Sure.
And then got into an entirely different career for a little bit. So several years after that, still found myself not doing photography professionally, getting paid for it.
Yeah.
But got out of a career, and which kind of put me in a position of was like, okay, what am I doing now? I'm basically at a crossroad,
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what can I do? And I was just put in a position where it was like, why don't you pursue photography seriously? You love it. And I was just in a spot where I was like, okay, let me try.
Do or die.
And that was no easy task though. And I remember so many people kind of almost being, I don't remember who it was. I just remember somebody uttering the words, and they're like, don't ever try to take your hobby and try to turn it into a profession or something along the lines of that. Don't try to
cut those people out of your life.
At the time,
they're cancer.
Yeah,
they're cancer.
Yeah. I was like, I think they were, looking back, I can only assume they were trying to say that the joy that you're getting out of your hobby is there. And when you try to turn it into a career where the stresses of business and money and bills come into play, you lose that excitement. And so I get that to a point, but, I love doing it. And I was just like, but I have yet to be like, even when I was just starting out and I was starting to work for a few magazines doing editorials, it wasn't great money, but I was like, but look, I just went out and photographed this
and I made money.
In my pocket. This is awesome.
That's the alchemical gold. Sorry, keep going. I'm interrupting. Keep going.
No. But yeah, I just did that it was hard and it was rough and it took a long time. And there were plenty of times where I was like, all right, I got to stop. Like, this isn't working out.
Yeah.
It's just too hard. And then still as time went on too, it was just more technology was coming out. Prices of gear was going down. It was putting it in the hands of the consumer a lot more, meaning, which is great. I think it's awesome. But what that did was saturated the market. More people started discovering photography and could do it with some great gear. And those who were talented, even from an early age, could now start producing some awesome stuff. And what that does is it floods the market, and then prices, which just in general in photography are all over the place because there's no bar on what people charge, so you can get people that do it from free to insanely expensive. And for everything in between, you have clients that are saying, well, look, this person does this for this much. This person's doing it for this much. I like their stuff, so why wouldn't I go for this dirt cheap job, So there's that, but that's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down. But ultimately, I did get to plenty of spots where I was like, this is too hard, I can't do it anymore. But it was my dad who said something years ago that always stuck with me, when he was like, you need to just stick with it. I know it's hard, but he was doing a lot of video stuff back in the day and loved it, but got to that same kind of place and was like, I got to do this, and got back into his old career.
Yeah.
Stability and all that. And I totally understand. But he was like, could you imagine where I'd be now 15 years ago if I would have stuck with this 15 years from now, where I would be and what I would be doing?
Yes.
And I just remember that always stuck with me. And I was like, okay, just keep going. Just
the time.
If you keep going, something, it may take a long time, but something's got to give. And it finally did. It was just got a little bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? Doors started opening, got a little bit of work here. Okay. And it just kind of snowballed. And, to the point where I was like, all right, now up until today, I'm doing it full time. I'm, and that's still hard. And it's a difficult industry, but, that's the long-winded.
No, dude, no, please. No, that was amazing. That's giving me like butterflies. It makes me so excited to hear that. What was that like when doors started opening and it starts to like, it's almost, I feel like it's almost like that feeling when you're like, you start falling in love and you're like kind of scared because you're like, is this too good? Is this too good? Am I about to have my heart just like sliced out by some ice queen? Or did I just find my like best friend? At what point where you're like, oh shit, doors are opening. Did you like freak out, or are you just like stay cool, just keep going? Or am I just crazy and like you didn't think any of this?
For me, it's fear is what I think has a huge hand. That's always been kind of a motivation. So I think taking that fear, if a door opens and you get an opportunity to do something, and it's a mix of wanting that feeling and keeping that going, the excitement of, okay, now I've put more money in my pocket because I've done what I'm loving to do. And the fear that it's all just going to go away, But I think that fear, when you talk about that kind of snowball effect, I think it just ramps it up even more, because the high that you get from, okay, this door opened, I got this great opportunity. You just want to capitalize on that, and you have to, especially when you're doing freelance. I mean,
can't let it die.
Yeah, you've got to keep fanning those flames to keep whatever was going. But yeah, I mean, it's just I always reflect back on where I started out and where I am now. And it's that excitement, think back years ago when I was giving up, and now I look at where I am now and I'm just like, man, I'm so glad I stuck with that, as hard as it was, but there's tons of cliches you can say about,
it's
when stuff is hard, it pays off, But I mean, it's just a killer feeling. I don't know what to compare it to, except it is just kind of one of those, it's an addiction. It's that those endorphins that you get, whatever addiction is, but this one is it's a good kind of artistic based and I mean, it's a blast.
You can't fake. I mean, I can see it on your face. You look like if you didn't enjoy what you were doing, you wouldn't do this podcast. You'd be like, dude, what do you need? Who are you? Why are you instead it's like, yeah, bro, let's go. Like, let's do it, man. And
I love talking about it. It's what makes me happy, and just love talking to people too. And just, it's an experience, everything's an experience.
No, but I think you nailed it. It's like, imagine where I would be. It's what your father said, where I would be if I'd stuck with it. And that's I mean, that was the mindset that really, got me to get into medical school. Was I was always a terrible student. And then after like a terrible freshman year, I was like, dude, I got to start studying. And it was first, it's the fear. Like you said, the fear is, it's what Hunter S. Thompson said. He's like, fear is a great motivator, but he's like, keep it in front of you, because it's a wild animal. He said, use it to pull you, almost like it's like a horse or something, or like a sleigh. But he's like, keep it in front of you so you can kill it, because he's like, it will turn on you. But he's like, fear is a good thing, and I do believe that there's nothing quite like fear to focus you. Nothing's going to get you to study genetics and organic chemistry through the night. Like, you don't do it because you're like, I want to be a doctor one day. When it's finals week and you're going on like your 8th night of like 3 hours of sleep, you're not like, I want to be a doctor, and that's why I'm going to study enantiomers or organic chemistry. You're like, shit, I'm going to fail. All those Asian kids, they're going to get in because I know my friend, my friend sung you up. I know he's studying, and I know he's going to get shit. And it's, but that drives you. And then also, it's like the first semester where I got A's. For like the first time in my life, I got straight A's, and it was like, I didn't even like the classes, but it's like what you said. It was like a sort of high where I was like, oh my God, I got A's. And it was a combination of, I want to keep this going, and I never want to go back. Like, I don't want to go back. I can't go back. Yeah. And and then to pull in what your dad said, where would I be if I just stuck with it? And I remember thinking, the time's going to pass. Like, I'm sitting here and I'm studying, and it seems like, each second is an hour, but I'd blink my eyes and a semester would be over. Okay, now I got a 4.0 to throw into my average. I'd blink my eyes and another semester would be over. Blink my eyes, I transfer to a better school. Blink my eyes, we finish with the MCAT. Now blink my eyes, and it's been 7 years, and it's like, oh, that's not even what I want to do anymore. Yeah. But that's kind of like my mind. Not that you asked, but that's kind of my mindset with like podcasting. Is I'm just like, just stick with it. And I'm like, just stick with it's gonna, like, the time is gonna pass. And when the time passes, do I want to say, man, I wish I had stuck with it, or do I want to have the same grin you have? You're like, I stuck with it.
Yeah, I mean, because I just always go back to, and it's not perfect, but if you're thinking like, should I do X, Y, or Z? Should I do that? And I just always say, well, if you don't do it, it's a no. That's your answer.
Definitive no. It's a definitive no.
So, and that's one thing that just bothers me when it's something that comes up with work or whatever the case may be, or something I want to do, and I'm like, yeah, but and when you start playing pros and cons and all this stuff, and it's like, okay, well, let me just get down to the most basic level. Say, okay, well, if I don't do it, it's a definite no, or it's never going to happen if I don't. But it can at least, even if you try it and whatever it is fails, you at least have your conscience off of yourself to say, okay, well, at least I know that I tried it and maybe it didn't work, but it's much worse to say I never tried and I wonder, because how your mind will wander and say,
it eats your soul.
It could have been this or it could have been that. That whole mentality, and that's just not a place to be in. It'll just drive you nuts. So to me, it's much better to just plow forward in the unknown and see what happens than just being like playing it safe and not doing it. But and then I also use that same thing that my dad was saying too now as motivation to, I think of like take, for me the last decade, I'm like really always try to better myself and like, okay, let me look at what I was doing 10 years ago. Let me see what I've learned since then. Yeah. And that's exciting to see progress. And then I just take that same decade and put it out in front of me. Hey, cool. I've learned this over the past 10 years. I can only imagine where I'm going to be in the next 10 years, 20 years, whatever the case may be. Yeah. And that's exciting. Love to learn. I'm never one to say that, all right, I've got everything dialed in.
Taught me off.
Done. Yeah.
That's that.
Especially in the creative world, there's always something new. There's always something to refine, to get better at. So yeah, that's kind of another piece of I guess more of the positive instead of just fear that drives me, but it's also just, it's all right. Now I'm in a spot where I can hopefully, have 10, 20 years in this industry and get excited about like, cool, where's this going to be in that time frame? So.
Yeah. It's kind of like the B-36, like the like jet engines and propellers. It's like, it's a dual propulsion system. It's like the love and the giddiness. And then like fear is like a nice like rocket thruster like behind it. It's like, it's a dual, you don't want to rely on one or the other because it could fail. But so we're coming up on an hour, so I got one or two more questions to ask. I can keep going, but I don't want to keep you forever. I tell every guest that when I get to like an hour, I'm like, it's whatever you want. So where's technology going? Is that
sorry?
Oh no, you're fine. You're good.
Go for it.
Where's technology going with just, I mean, for something like, my uneducated mind with photography can grasp like higher megapixels, or is it just like, how are cameras getting better? Like how is, as someone that's in the industry and you're not just like, you're not picking up like the new hot gift for Christmas. It's like you're going in, you're getting this shit that's for photographers. Yeah. What's like the future baller camera? What's the iPhone 20 of cameras? Is there a certain kind? Is there like
it's debatable. I think I'm not one that's ever stuck with you've got to shoot this brand, you've got to shoot this camera.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends on each bit of context of, okay, what, I can just talk from my standpoint of if a client wants X, okay, well then I'm going to look at what's going to be the best camera to be able to do that. Now, granted, I predominantly shoot Canon, for a number of reasons, but
sponsor us, Canon.
There's often been times where I'll resort to a different camera for a different type of look, a different piece of technology that it has, for a number of many reasons. And again, it just comes down to client needs. And, there's certain cameras that, for aviation, for example, there's plenty of cameras out there that couldn't hack what I need to accomplish. So it just really depends on the context of kind of what a client's looking for, what the end result is. It's like, hey, we need a picture of this. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's generic. You could basically do it with an iPhone and get the result you need. Then there's other stuff where you need something dramatically different. But obviously lately mirrorless cameras have been the big change, with still cameras. For the longest time, you had DSLRs, SLRs before digital, single lens reflex, where you physically had moving parts. Now you don't have those moving parts. They're becoming, a lot quieter. If you want to say a lot more reliable, maybe in the long run, because as we know, anything that has a moving part just tends to wear out, tends to have a life to it. So mirrorless is becoming popular. They're becoming lighter. They're becoming less bulky, so on and so forth. So I think that clearly is the way that things are going. I just can't see that. Who knows how much time it's going to take until DSLRs are gone. Mm-hmm. But no, it just seems natural. Mm-hmm. And I know some people get really stuck on
snobby.
Have to, no mirrorless. Yeah. DSLRs are the old school way, and that's the way to do it. But then you go back. There's always
there's the beer hipsters of cameras.
It's like you have your people that you can say, DSLRs, no, that's the way to go, not mirrorless. But then you have people that still shoot film, and they're like, no, film's the original way. Film's this. Digital is what,
Yeah.
It's just this debate that I don't think needs to happen. It's just whatever you're shooting, whatever works best for you, whatever's going to get you your desired outcome, go for it.
Yeah.
Whatever medium that may be. But yeah, I think mirrorless is definitely, everyone just keeps upping the ante.
Yeah.
And with, I think, so many other industries that are in tech in some sort of way, it's just blowing up like crazy.
Yeah.
iPhones, for example, just 2007 to where we are now, the amount of stuff that those things can do, and just technology in general, how fast it's progressing.
Yeah.
That's going to happen in the photo industry, and who knows, maybe in 10 years, mirrorless were only around maybe for a couple years until someone discovered something that's even better. So who knows? But as of right now, I think everyone's slowly moving over towards mirrorless for a lot of their benefits, and they're only going to get better. I think a lot of people that don't like mirrorless is because there are certain things that they can't do or do as well as certain DSLRs, but it's just a matter of time. Just like with everything else, they'll get to that point where it's going to be able to do what these DSLRs are doing. And at that point, it's like, okay, well, if it can do that and it's doing what I needed to do, then so be it,
Yeah.
But oddly enough, though, a lot of the mirrorless cameras that I've at least put my hands on are lighter, are smaller, so on and so forth. But for me, I don't like shooting with them yet. I'm sure at some point maybe they'll start making. I think it's more of just the feeling of it.
Okay.
Certain mirrorless, they're so small. I feel like when you're trying to hold your iPhone, it's so thin and so light that it's not comfortable.
Yeah.
With the bigger 1D bodies of Canon's line, they're big, they're heavy. I get it, but they feel great in my hands. It just feels like an extension of me, as opposed to I'm trying to balance this piece of technology and hold it in such a way. It feels right and it feels normal. But by no means, if they came out with a mirrorless camera that had the same size, the same grips type of stuff, go for it. But as of right now, everyone's so tiny and small, and it's
maybe that's what you need to do. You need to pioneer like a form of like almost like shell you can clap on it. It'd be like there's a guy that did my podcast who's really into cars, and he said like in the future he's like you're gonna have just like Tesla batteries. He's like, but you're gonna be slapping on like old Mustangs or Hummers or something.
Sure. Yeah,
maybe that's what you need to do.
It makes sense. I mean, that was a good analogy because you look at a lot of cinema cameras and stuff like that. You have the brain, you have the body, and then it's like this square of a camera, and you're by the person who's not in the industry, like, what is that? That's not a camera,
Yeah.
But you build it out. You add this lens, but you can take it off and you put on something else. You can add this monitor. You can add this battery pack. You can add all these extra little things, like the red cameras that are out. You can build those things into monsters.
Aren't those?
Or you can have them really, really small run and gun type of camera. And then with not to get too techie, but the new Canon C500 Mark II, it is a body, but there's all these additional things that you can just snap on, snap off, take it on, take it off, to really just build exactly what you need. And that's something that, photography could get into, to where Canon, Nikon, whoever can come out with their core piece of a camera, but then it can be inserted into a certain body, blah, 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 to be able to kind of to build on that. Because I have big hands, so that's also why I like the one, because I can hold it and it feels like the size of my hand. But who knows? The sky's the limit with
it's not like
how people can design stuff and come up with crazy ideas. So who knows?
It's not like Shaq holding a basketball.
Exactly.
Looks like he's holding a tennis ball. Maybe I don't need to upload this podcast. Maybe you need to go patent some like shell. And there's your.
I'll throw it out there to whoever hears that and thinks of it and can make it happen. Go for it.
Just give me like 2%. Give me 2%. Just give me 2% sales. That's all. I just want a little bit, man. Just kick a little my way. All right, and then so how? Just because I always have fun going on like the Apple website, and I'll just like pick random things and just see how expensive and intricate I can make it, because that's what normal people do. And normal people have friends, but no, I go on and I'll like the new like Mac, like, or was like Mac Pro, iMac Pro, or I don't even know what it is, but I got one up to like the other day. I got one up to like, without even accessories, I got one up to like $67,000. It's insane. What is, back on the money's not a problem, what's the craziest camera you make for you? What's the most baller, or is there not anything necessarily particularly crazy, like you have what you want or need?
I'm one of those, it's funny because like the industry that I'm in and the stuff that I shoot with, I've come to a point to where I don't want to say I don't geek out about tech and stuff. I still love it, but it's funny because at least me, once I have something that works and it's getting the job done, I'll have friends all the time that, hey, I want to get a new camera. What do you think I should get? And the first thing that I think of is, I have no idea, because there's so many cameras out there that can do so many things that it's just, it's not like, I don't know, like way back in the day, it was like, there was like a type of Cadillac, there was a type of Ford, then they started coming out with more models, then there's more models, then there's just like there's so many different types of cars from one manufacturer that you can't even keep track. And if you've got the one that you like and you drive, unless you're just, like to keep up with that stuff,
falling out,
there's no point in keeping up with it. But I tend to, obviously, when I get in the market for something where I'm like, okay, like I need a camera that can do this, that's when I'll start doing my research.
Okay.
And obviously, for friends, if they're asking me that, I'll go do some research real quick. But I'm not one to just every day I wake up and have to get on websites and just see what's the latest, greatest technology.
Yeah, rumors.
I do enjoy it, but I just so I don't think there's one camera out there that's like the unicorn for me, where I'm like, it would be so awesome to have that camera, because I think for me it just comes down to that feeling, like we were talking about earlier. If I'm trying to convey a message, or I'm trying to convey a feeling through a photo or video or something like that, to me it's a camera is just another tool. I'm more focused on the output as opposed to this one has cool lights on it, this one has that, because I just always look at, people get really bogged down in the weeds with, well, this camera, shoots at this, and they start rattling off all this technology, which is great. It's awesome technology, but at the end of the day, what's the purpose for the thing you're putting out? And is it going on Instagram? Is it going on your website? Is it going to be a huge ad in a magazine? Whatever the case may be, nobody knows what camera it was shot on. Nobody knows what lens was used.
Yeah.
All you see is that final image and the feeling or the message that it conveys to them. So I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it absolutely does.
That's the way I think. It's not, I just don't get, like I said, I love technology. I just don't really get bogged down, because I'm more worried about just my final product and the impact it's going to have for my client, or if it's just something I'm throwing on Instagram just for, because to me it's like, I know how other people's images make me feel. It makes me happy. It makes me nostalgic over something. I just love the feeling that I get from other people's photos, so that I hope that something I put out generates the same thing on the receiving end.
Yeah. And
to me, that's like my peak of excitement for photography. So I'm more just worried about, that final output than
what it's printing out
and stuff. And to kind of bring it back full circle, with the post that you saw of that F-86 in that video, it's funny because that was taken with my iPhone, and that was actually not even the clearest version I had. The original version I had was clear and crisp. And I think I just like recorded that from my phone from an old story that I had posted on Instagram years ago, or last year. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. So I just posted it on screen, whatever. It's the most liked and watched thing I've put up on my entire Instagram. And it was done with a phone.
Well, that's the one I reached out to you for.
Yeah. So, and that's what I mean. So it just goes to show, like, some, Hasselblad, for example, it wasn't shot with some $50,000, camera. It was shot with an iPhone. Yeah. And I think it's just one of those things that video conveyed a very different thing than most people see, in a point of view that most people don't get to experience. And go figure, that's an iPhone video, out of all the polished photos and everything that I put up, that's the most liked and most viewed thing that I've put up to date. Yeah. So it's funny how that, and it just to me is like the proof in the pudding. You can oh, but I shot this on a Hasselblad. I was like, but they don't know that.
Yeah, you're right. They don't.
They just see.
They don't know
I could get a Hasselblad and take a terrible photo.
Yeah.
I could take any camera.
Yeah.
How badass it is. I could take anybody could take a terrible photo with millions of dollars worth of camera equipment. But then you can get somebody with an iPhone and take an amazing photo that people are like, oh, this is just too good.
That's it. You're right.
And I just see it time and time again. So
you're right, because it's with like photo software, like I started taking online graphic design courses, and we'll use like the full on like you can get a subscription to the school, but like it'd be like the newest, most updated, like the bee's knees, like Photoshop this point, whatever, and like it's cool. All the stuff that I use that I like making, it's on the stuff that I originally downloaded on my iPhone 4 back in 2016. Photoshop Mix, Photoshop Fix, and Photoshop Express. They're free apps on the App Store. Even now, so it's a baller iPad Pro.
iPad Pro, yeah.
Dude, I use the Photoshop Mix and Fix, and that's what I use. Like that's because it's almost like the over engineering problem. It's like you have too many tools, or it's too intricate, and it's like ultimately no one gives a shit. It's because and they can't give a shit because they don't know. They see the image.
Yeah.
It's the I think it's Jason Silva. There's some quote where it's like in the digital age, getting someone a stranger's attention span is the new oil.
Yeah.
It's like that's the goodie. It's and they don't, if you're like, well, I use this camera with this and this and someone like me is like, I don't give a shit, but I'm scrolling through and I see, your F-86 Sabre. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I want to talk to that guy. It's you're right.
It's just it to me, it's the best tool for the job.
Yeah.
I always refer to, camera is a tool, a lens is a tool, a gyro is a tool, a drone is a tool. And it's just for, people who like cars and know them somewhat, or construction, you can do a job a certain way with certain tools, but sometimes there's just the right tool for that one specific thing. Mm-hmm. And there might be something that a company makes this specific tool for this specific job, but sometimes in a certain circumstance, the people who designed that tool didn't think about that, oh, well, this person might be under rafters in a tight spot where they can't reach it, and so that tool they made for that job doesn't work in that context. Mm-hmm. So they have to use this archaic, pry bar to do it, but that $5 pry bar worked, and it did the job over the $300 engineered, tool that they built it for, but it didn't work in that context. So I think that same kind of concept can be applied to a lot of stuff, but in this context with photography and video and stuff, it just depends on what client needs, what your purpose is, all that stuff, and just what's going to get the job, what's going to be the best thing for it, as opposed to getting sucked into brand names and that shiny new
the faster it will make you the new basketball shoes. They're not going to make you a better basketball player. It's all right, two last questions, and then I'm actually going to have to get out of here because my MacBook is, I think I could cook an egg on this fucker right now.
My fans are running.
No, well, I have fans that I use under it, but I don't use them while I record. This thing, I'm starting to look, I was like, what was that feeling? And I'm like, oh, that's hot. I was gonna say, is it Hasselblad? That's the one the astronauts used on the moon.
Yeah. So that was.
Is there a reason for that, or was it just like the best product placement ever?
Don't quote me on it, but I know that was the. If I remember correctly, that was what NASA chose to use based on what was available at the time. Which, Hasselblad cameras are amazing. They've got a great history, a really iconic history. And again, I could be wrong, but with all my history, but I think at the time with their medium format cameras were just the ones that could get the quickest, clearest, see, for that job, it was like the best, the fastest.
Yeah, it's like what it's what you said. You're like in the, sorry to interrupt you.
No, go for it. Yeah.
When you're in the air, you're like, there's a lot of people on the clock. You got fuel. It's multiply that by 10 million. You're on the moon. Yeah. I think they did the math. It came out. It was, this could be wrong, but I think it was something like, it's like $10 million per person per hour on the surface of the moon. It's balling a little hardcore.
Wouldn't surprise me.
You can't have a camera that, well, it might work. It's like, dog.
Yeah.
You might die.
It's got to work. It's got to be reliable.
Yeah. And then, sorry, I interrupted you. I don't know.
I mean, it was there. Yeah, it was, as far as I can remember, it's just that camera at the time was like, this is going to do the job. This is going to, get the job done and make sure we get those photos, back in the film days, make sure that it works. So.
Yeah. All right. And last question is, would you be able to do some like badass like photography if you got your hands on like an NRO, National Reconnaissance Office satellite, some shit that's been classified, where they just declassified some of the Corona and Keyhole satellites from the 60s. Like, they just declassified the technology.
Wow.
When JFK was in office.
Yeah.
They just declassified. The Beatles did their first show at Shea Stadium in 1964. So that's what was popping off then, and they I'm not bullshitting, you just declassified it.
Wow.
So with God knows what the hell is up there right now.
Yeah.
Could you do some like beautiful photography with that instead of like, military surveillance and this is where we're going to do this and this is where this nuclear power plant's going up? In some idyllic world, could you take control of those and do some like beautiful photography, or do you think those are so hyper specialized? Or do you think you could do some badass iPhone wallpapers?
I think it just is all dependent on the message you're trying to convey, and then what your subject matter is, and then the audience that's intrigued by that. But you can take that kind of similar. I'm sure they differ, but you look at something like the Hubble telescope, and the images that thing's producing. Yeah. It's looking at stuff that's incomprehensible how far it is.
Billions of light years.
But they're looking at some amazing stuff. At least I think it's beautiful and amazing. But with some of the satellites that are out there and how, being able to read a license plate from space, type of stuff. I'm sure, with the freedom to take controls of that thing, the stuff you could do. But, again, it's also the focal length and depth to get technical with it. You could zoom in close and take a photo from the air of a license plate,
or you could go take a picture of it.
But at the same time,
what's so great about it?
Somebody that they'd be like, "Oh, well, what? Were you up in a helicopter?"
Yeah.
Oh, just shot this from space, and they're like,
"Oh, okay,
well, that's cool," but it's still just a photo of a license plate, or the focal length seems like it's from it's far, but it's I'm sure you could have some fun and do something with it, but even just satellite photography, looking down at the Earth, I've got a handful of stuff on like my Instagram, because obviously I'm up in the air a lot. So when there's downtime and we're flying back or flying somewhere far, I'm always trying to look at something neat from up above, and you get some neat stuff, and you can start making the Earth look a little abstract, and there's people that I can do it way better than I do. But I figured with a satellite that could have that amount of power, I'm sure you could still do something crazy with it, something fun.
Yeah. I think the NRO gave NASA a couple satellites in like the late 2000s, and it was like, it's far like better than Hubble. It's just like, you guys can just turn them around now. We use what you have, like something like Hubble is like, that's like we've had that shit forever. It's they just let they're like it basically is like NASA can I think, and I could be sensationalizing it, and frankly I don't care if I am, but like if something like NASA was like amped about these, like they just got these things that are they can save so much money on their budget because they don't have to buy these top of the line things, and it was like some shit. It was literally like some shit in a warehouse, and the NRO was like, yeah, I don't know if it was a political favor. They're like, yeah, you guys can have them. Like, yeah, take out some sensitive like national security, but yeah, you can have. And they're like, this is sick, and they're like, oh shit, we rolled those back there and turned Vietnam like
crazy, but yeah, no, you need to go, but there's a lot of stuff.
Keep talking. I don't want my laptop to start melting.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
There's a lot of stuff in the aviation world too, with the technology for video and stuff, with gyros, like a company called Shotover. They make an amazing gyro that can be mounted on pretty much anything at this point, if you have the money to get one. But they've been putting out over the past few years, some amazing stuff that's just never been done before, where they've got one mounted to other aircraft. So typically you see a news chopper, a news helicopter, and they have that spherical gyro on the bottom so they can look at whatever. They're taking that, they've refined it, made it even better, but now they can use that on virtually anything. They've put them on cars, now they even have one on a few jets. So they've engineered them to be able to withstand the speed, everything that comes with that. But they're able to get some footage now that's just never been seen, and they're really pushing that type of cinematography, and it's just dead steady with all their technology on top of the types of lenses they're using, with long focal lengths. So they've been able to shoot stuff from these crazy vantage points and get down and follow a plane that's doing several hundred miles an hour close to the ground, and it's just dead steady. And unlike, some of the news helicopters, they can zoom down pretty far, but you'll see the bumping around a little bit. But I mean, these things are just, and it almost seems fake because you're not used to seeing that vantage point, and then you expect it to be moving and vibrating because it's so far. But yeah, they've been pushing that. So a lot of companies have been jumping on board with that commercial stuff.
Yeah.
And, using that, and it's beautiful footage, just beautiful footage.
You should read. I talked about it. I had a guy that operated the video cameras on an MQ-1 Predator and MQ-9 Reaper a couple days ago.
Nice.
And it sounds a lot. It was really cool, but he was my older brother's friend, so it wasn't like I just like landed this interview. Is you there? You froze. Oh, there you are. But there's a program called he worked on it, and I read a book, listened on Audible last year. Hey, Audible, sponsor me. But it's called Rise of the Eye in the Eye in the Sky, Rise of the Gorgon Stare. And it kind of sounds what you're talking about, but it's something they started putting on drones, and they talked about the soda straw problem. And it's if you're doing surveillance of, let's say you're following a militant group in Iraq, and you're way up there, and you got this, 40 megapixel. I think some of the ones they're using were gigapixels, but when you zoom in on, whatever truck with whatever guy and an IED on it, okay, cool, we got him, we're following him, but now we can't see anything else in the entire city. We can't see whatever Baghdad, Ramadi, wherever the hell you are. Yeah. So they start adding multiple soda straws, and the soda straws, you're looking through the thing, you can't see anything else.
Yeah.
So they created Gorgon Stare. And Gorgon Stare, it captures the entire city from a certain height with, I believe, a gigapixel video camera. And it can have up to 40 individual soda straws. And so you can have this one drone. Obviously, it's a drone. You don't need to have crew on it. So you can have up to 40 different drone operators, if you will, on the ground, each following independent targets miles apart. All while you're still capturing the whole thing. Yeah. So at any point you can go, hey, wait, we need to see what happened over there. But a cool thing about it is it's not like the news chopper where you can be up and you're orbiting or whatever. You're going around the house, but the thing is the house is moving. You're seeing the different view of everything. They describe this as you're just looking at it like it's Google Earth. And when you zoom in, they say it's like looking at a petri dish of water or of pond water. All of a sudden you start to see their stuff moving. You're like, oh, this isn't an image. But everything stays still. So it's unlike normal aerial surveillance while it's moving, you can have this entire image of, it's almost like you said with the really tall tree. It's a Hyperion, is that the name of it, the tree? It's where it's multiple images taken, and so it looks like one big picture. But they say it's so high up and it can stay in such a holding pattern that the ground seemingly doesn't move. The only thing that moves are the people. So it's basically like looking at Google Earth, but you can see people getting out and moving and what. And the weird thing is like they described it as, when there's like a heist and the bad guys do the bad thing, or more realistically, they're setting off and they're planting an IED on a roadside for a U.S. Marine convoy to hit. There's always the plan to execute the plan, and then there's everyone, hey, we're going to take different escape plans. They can't track all of us. But they said no one ever has a pre-plan. And that's what the Gorgon Stare is for, is it will record this shit. It's not like, hey, we got a bad guy, we got to track him. No, it will just stay up there for 1, 2, 3, 8 days, 9 days, just going around. And so this thing goes down, and maybe you didn't prevent it, but what you can do is rewind it. You can they each walked out of their house that morning, and it's like, that's where that guy lives.
Gotcha.
And they can, I don't know what the point of me telling you that was, but it sounds like that's what you're talking about. I'll send you a link to the book. It's dude, it's like an 8-hour listen, but I think you would really enjoy it because some of the shit is just, it's crazy. They're talking about tracking like thousands of people for days.
Crazy.
And, it's
Wow.
It's eerie, dude. Thank you very much for doing my podcast. And hey, man,
absolutely.
you are, and I say this to a lot of people, and I don't want people to start thinking it's a formality because there are some guests I don't say it to, but you are always welcome back on. Anytime you want to come on and just chat, or just this new badass thing happened or whatever, dude, shoot me an email, shoot me a text. You're more than welcome to come back on. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and like I said, if I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't do a nice formality. I'd be like, all right, thanks for coming on, Doug. Like, I got to get out of here. No, dude.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, and
thoroughly
I really
enjoyed talking.
The kind words on Reddit, and for even finding me interesting enough to bring on. So,
dude, no, I fucking loved it. Because I get this like crash course that Wikipedia is great because you can go learn what you want to learn.
Sure.
But to me, it's even better when I can talk to someone, because it's
Absolutely.
like you do all of this. It's like, and I just leave and I'm like, I now I got an idea of photography that I could never get just scanning around, and that I would never go out of my way to get. But because I can extract it from you, it's like, oh, that was cool as shit. And no, dude. So I don't understand photography.
It's a lot of learning when you're not having to fumble around on the internet trying to find something. You just talk to somebody.
Exactly.
You get so much more done. So
that's kind of what I hope people find value in this podcast for, is I like that. I can just, I talked to a guy who's in Israeli Special Forces the other day. It's just like, where else can you get this information?
No, but just coming back to what I was saying earlier, is I think it's great you're doing it, because there's so many people. I have so many people that I've come in contact with. They're like, oh, I want to start a podcast. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I just always am like, well, if you don't do it, it's a no.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're doing it, good on you.
Thanks, man.
Just keep going. Just see where it leads.
I've been telling myself I'll do it since 2015, and finally is December last year, and I was just like, you know what? I was thinking, if I had started this in 2015, I'd probably be making money off it by now. And I was just like, oh, well, how long is it? And I was like, dude, just start. So literally text my friend. I was like, what are you doing? He's like, nothing. I was like, do you want to do a podcast? He was like, sure. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So it's just that snowball effect, and just the more people you meet, the more stuff you learn. You research this, you just keep running into more people, learning more stuff. And hell yeah.
Opportunities keep presenting themselves. So.
Hell yeah, man. And hey, dude, thank you for the sort of career motivation, spiritual guru wisdom you had. 99 out of 100 people you meet are more of the, what are you doing, dude? You're chasing something that's not real. And then every once in a while there's a positive person, but it's like a positive person that hasn't exactly succeeded. So it's like, how much do the words weigh? Yeah. Here you are, and like, this is your job, and you're like, yeah, stick with it. To me, like, that is something invaluable, and I truly do appreciate that. That gets me going. I'm like, okay. I'm not crazy. Well, I am crazy, but it's like, maybe if I'm crazy just enough. Like,
we all are.
Yeah.
So, yeah, well, appreciate it, man.
Hey, man, you're always welcome back on. You do whatever. I don't really know what else to say, man. Thank you very much. I'm gonna edit the audio. When I say edit the audio, I put it in iMovie and I hit auto. It makes it sounds much better. But
it gets the job done.
Yeah, the internet's terrible here, so it's gonna take most of the night to upload. But I'll send you a link when it's up.
Yeah, please.
And yeah, man, seriously, please come back. Please come back on.
We'll do it.
All right, dog. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Take care.
See ya.
Bye-bye.